Hi guys, PMQs was pretty explosive this week, with Rishi Sunak both having problems that he can't fix and no real means of fighting back. Of course, the topic of the day was Tory tax evasion and tax avoidance, and the fact that Sunak has refused to sack the current chairman of the party, Nadhim Zahawi, is becoming a bit of a headache for the Prime Minister. Starmer was constantly on the attack, and towards the end, Sunak was forced to pull out his last line of defence, which was pretty pathetic. Have a listen.
We all know why the Prime Minister was reluctant to ask his party chair questions about family finances and tax avoidance. but his failure to sack him when the whole country can see what's going on shows how hopelessly weak he is. A Prime Minister overseeing chaos, overwhelmed at every turn. He can't say when ambulances will get to heart attack victims again. He can't say when the prison system will keep streets safe again. He can't even deal with tax avoiders in his own cabinet. Is he starting to wonder if this job is just too big for him?
Wonderful. Now, of course, the topic was the tax evasion, but it was important to talk about things that affect people directly. The ambulance service, that, people are waiting hours for an ambulance, and the fact that the prison service is not up to scratch and there are people walking the streets that should be in prison.
Mr. Speaker, the difference between him and me is that I stand by my values and my principles even when it is difficult. When I disagreed fundamentally with the previous Prime Minister, I resigned from the government. But for
I'm not sure who he's hoping to win over with that, because there are a lot of people in the party who still support Boris Johnson. So I think he's pissed off a few people within the Conservative Party by saying that, by reminding them of that.
But for four long years, he sat next to the member for Islington North. When anti-Semitism ran rife, when his predecessor sided with our opponents, that's what's weak, Mr. Speaker. He has no principles and just petty politics.
Well, so if in doubt, pull out Jeremy Corbyn. In case of emergency, break the glass and pull out Jeremy Corbyn. That's pretty pathetic. Jeremy Corbyn is no longer a Labour MP. It says something that the Prime Minister's response to the leader of the opposition is to point to the previous leader of the opposition. One thing is talking about Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is still a member of the Conservative Party. Boris Johnson's corruption still infects the Conservative Party. Boris Johnson is lining himself up to replace Rishi Sunak. It's not like Boris Johnson has gone away. We can see clearly that he is still banging about, in maybe not the best choice of words, around the House of Commons. What Boris Johnson does is still relevant. What Jeremy Corbyn does is irrelevant. And the fact that you're trying to use, well, you used to be a member of his party or a member of his cabinet, is pretty pathetic. It shows a Prime Minister who has run out of ideas and run out of excuses. He should have fired Nadhim Zahawi. He knew what was happening. He was Chancellor when these problems first came to the HMRC, to the Treasury. Sorry, whoever was in charge of checking the accounts. This isn't something that happened overnight. This has been likely going on for months. So who's ultimately responsible? The Chancellor, and maybe even more than that, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. Well, Boris Johnson's no longer in charge, so the Chancellor, who's now the Prime Minister, has a lot of questions to answer. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.